There's an AI.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the gas participant fee structure consultation. We'll just give it a minute for anyone else to join before we kick off. Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's get started. Welcome to AEMO's public webinar on the gas participant fee structure consultation paper. I'm Matt McAdam, Manager of Stakeholder Engagement here at AEMO, and I'll be hosting our session today. Note that today's webinar is being recorded for record keeping and note-taking purposes, and we'll be publishing a replay of the recording on our website after the call. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to the elders past and present and acknowledge their continuing connection to land, waters, and culture. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and waters from which all of you are joining today, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people attending the webinar. Let me briefly take you through today's agenda. First, Hannah Heath, AEMO's Group Manager of Strategic Market Reform, will provide you with some context on Australian gas market dynamics and AEMO's role. Kerry Galloway, Manager, Market Insights and Fee Structures, will then cover the background, rules, requirements, and existing fee structures. After that, Michelle Dissaram, Principal Analyst, Market Insights and Fee Structures, will guide us through the key matters and questions on which we're seeking stakeholder feedback in this consultation. And we'll conclude with next steps and a dedicated Q&A, aiming to finish on the hour. Whatever questions the team can't answer live on this webinar, we'll take on notice and respond after the webinar. We're also very happy to schedule one-on-ones with anyone that would like to discuss the paper or share more detailed feedback. And if you would like to arrange that, please email marketreform@aemo.com.au and the team will be in touch to set up a time. We would, of course, very much encourage you to submit written responses on the issues and questions identified in the consultation paper, and the deadline for doing so is Wednesday, the 9th of September. You can use the same email address for that, and that's marketreform@aemo.com.au. A few brief housekeeping points before we begin. Please submit questions or comments through the Teams chat at any time. We'll be monitoring the chat and we'll address questions during the Q&A. You're also very welcome to use the raise hand function if you prefer to ask a question verbally. And when invited, just unmute yourself and briefly introduce your name and your organization before you ask your question. Before moving on to the consultation itself, I need to draw your attention to AEMO's competition law meeting protocol. Our discussion today must remain limited to the matters on today's agenda, and participants must make their own independent decisions regarding their commercial positions. Please do not share competitively sensitive information on this consultation webinar or discuss matters that are price or supply terms, customer, bid or tender, supplier arrangements, costs, margins, capacity or commercial strategy. If you believe the discussion may create a competition law risk, please raise an objection immediately or alert me. By participating today, we ask that everyone comply with the Competition and Consumer Act 2010 and AEMO's published protocol. Finally, AEMO published a consultation paper on the 19th of August, marking the start of the statutory review period of the gas participant fee structure that will apply from the 1st of July 2027. We'll drop a link to the paper in the chat so that you can access it easily. Today, we'll be explaining the consultation's context, scope, and key questions, and give you plenty of opportunity to provide feedback and ask questions. We're consulting on matters such as who is charged, how relevant costs are allocated, the period over which costs are recovered, and the number and scope of fee categories. So this is a review of the fee structures themselves, not the annual quantum of AEMO's fees, which are determined separately through our annual budget and fees process. With that, I'd like to hand over to Hannah Heath to take us through some context. Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, Matt, and welcome everyone. Do you want to just move to the next slide, please? So I'm the Group Manager of Strategic Market Reform. We sit under the Policy and Corporate Affairs division under Violette Micheli, and my team is responsible for the participant fee structure consultations. You will all be familiar with a number of dynamics that are happening within the gas market at the moment, which relate to both the market dynamics themselves, but also the evolving role that AEMO is having within the operation of the gas markets and systems. We've got some examples here around, the key role that gas plays in the energy transition, which AEMO speaks to in a number of different consultations and forums, and in the way that both the gas and electricity sectors interact with one another. We also, are very aware that the dynamics of the gas sector themselves are evolving. We're in an environment where the nature of demand across the sector, be it residential, commercial or industrial, is on the decline, as well as the role that gas power generation, its integration in the electricity market is playing. Electrification is also having an impact on gas demand and the profile of it, as well as a number of market reforms that are happening in the space at the moment as well, particularly around the supply side. So within all of that, general context, AEMO's role is also evolving, and our responsibilities are evolving within those gas market functions and operational functions. And the gas fee structure consultation, this is quite relevant because it really looks at what are the activities that AEMO is undertaking and the costs that are associated with that. We've got a couple of reforms that are listed, which are kind of in implementation at the moment. But in the consultation paper, we also call out a number of ongoing reforms, and we'll be considering how they may factor into the current participant fee structure consultation as we go through, and are seeking your views on that. So things like, the duration of the fee structure and others play into how we think about the nature of the reforms that are happening at the moment. So with a little bit of that context, I will now hand over to Kerry, who will take us through the scope of the consultation.
Thanks, Hannah. Yep, so as noted, I'll take us through a bit of background, so how the gas participant fees work, the framework for this consultation and the scope of the consultation, before just giving a review of the existing fee structures, and then hand over to Michelle, who will talk through the key matters highlighted in the consultation paper. So if we could just move to the next slide. So this is looking at how the gas participant fees work. So effectively the participant fees include three key components. So the first one is this gas participant fee structure. So that determines how costs are allocated and recovered, and that applies for a fixed period, usually over a few years. At the moment, it's the last few have been 3 years. And then the second step is each year AEMO undertakes a separate annual budget and fee process and consultation to determine its revenue requirements for the financial year ahead. And then the third step is in the gas revenue requirements determined under that annual budget and fee process are then recovered from registered participants according to the gas participant fee structure in place at the time. And there also are registration fees that sit within the fee structure that are recovered on a registration basis. So as Matt noticed, this consultation applies to the structure of the fees considered, which is that step one, and the actual amount charged for each fee is determined in that annual process, which is outside this process. If we can move to the next slide, which looks at the consultation framework. So why are we consulting? It's because the current gas participant fee structure is ending on the 30th of June 2027, and under the National Gas Rules, AEMO is required to review and consult on the structure to then apply from the 1st of July 2027. And this consultation paper marks the commencement of that statutory process. Also, under the rules, the new fee structure must be published at least 3 months before it is implemented, which in this case is by the 31st of March 2027. And then in developing the fee structure, AEMO must have regards to the national gas objective and the fee structure principles set out in the National Gas Rules. And these are shown here on the slide on the right. So just at a high level, the fee structure principles involve that the fee structure should be simple, and the components of the fees charged to each registered participant should be reflective to the extent to which the revenue requirement involves that registered participant. And the fee structure should not discriminate unreasonably against a category of registered participants. And the rules don't indicate that any of those fee structure principles should have a greater weight than any other. It's a matter of when AEMO is undertaking the review, we'll be assessing the available options against the National Gas Objective and those fee structure principles, taking into account stakeholder feedback and the circumstances that exist at the time of the determination. And I will just note that each fee structure determination is considered anew, so that's all components of the fee structure are considered anew, but AEMO may have regard for previous determinations in undertaking that review. If we can just move to the next slide. So this is looking at the components of the participants' fee structure. So these are the elements, the key elements that we're considering when we're reviewing a fee structure. So the first one is the registered participants. So that's the categories of registered participants who allocated costs as part of the fee structure. Then we have the type and number of fees and how they relate to AEMO's activities and outputs. We have the metric for charging fees. So this can be dollars per gigajoule or dollars per customer supply point. And then lastly, we have the fee structure period, which as mentioned is a period of time for which the fee structure applies. Okay, if we can look at the next slide, please. Okay, so this includes what is in scope of the consultation. So the consultation includes the fee structures used to recover the costs of AEMO's existing East Coast gas market functions, as well as any new and upcoming functions. So the current functions are shown here, so it includes the wholesale gas markets, the retail gas markets, the market information planning and reliability functions such as the gas bulletin board, the gas statement of opportunity, and the East Coast gas reliability functions under stage 1 of these reforms, as well as the pipeline capacity trading and auction services. And then for new functions, as Hannah touched on, we have the East Coast gas stage 2 reforms, as well as the gas cyber security roles and responsibilities. Now, out of scope of the consultation is the actual amount to be charged. As I mentioned, it's determined through AEMO's annual budget and fee process. The commencement date of the fee structure, which is 1st of July, that's set by the expiry of the previous fee structure, and also the gas supply hub and the Western Australian gas markets, which are determined, the fee structures for those functions are determined under separate processes. Okay, if we can look now at the existing fee structure. Now there's a lot of detail on this slide, which I'm not going to go through, but effectively we have 8 different fee structures at the moment that recover the costs associated with the functions, the existing functions, which were shown on the previous slide. So a couple of, the main thing to note here is that we have a range of different different, to call them sort of charging approaches. So we have some based on market activity or or usage, such as gas withdrawals or traded volumes. Some recovered on the basis of customer supply points. And then we also have the registration fees for establishing new participant registrations across most markets. But what I did want to highlight is in the consultation paper, we have 6 questions, and these 6 questions are provided to guide submissions and discussion, but they're certainly not the only aspects that we welcome submissions on. So stakeholders may answer all or none of the questions and comment on any aspect that is relevant to them of the fee structure. But under question 1, we are looking at stakeholders' views for whether the current fee structure remains fit for purpose, having regard to the national gas objective and the fee structure principles. And I will note that in the consultation paper, we have not proposed any additional initial changes to the existing fee structures, apart from some potential simplification options that Michelle will cover later on this morning. However, we are looking through the consultation paper, so we're interested in feedback through submissions on whether the current arrangements remain appropriate and whether there have been changes since the last determination that suggest an alternative approach should be considered. Okay, well, actually that concludes the section on the overview of the framework and the current structure. So before I'll hand over to Michelle, but just pause briefly for any questions or clarifications on the materials covered so far.
Okay, if there are no questions at this point, I'll continue then. Thanks, Kerry, for giving that good overview to the key matters section now. So over the next few slides, I'll step through the key matters that we are seeking stakeholder feedback on in this consultation paper. And each slide has a question at the bottom, which is the same questions which we've included in the consultation paper. And again, we are welcoming submissions, as Kerry mentioned, or addressing those questions or any other matters stakeholders wish to bring to AEMO's attention. So while I make my way through the slides, please feel free to ask questions or seek clarification at any point during the presentation. If we can move to the first topic, please, Alice. So the first one here is the fee structure period. So the rules allow AEMO to determine the appropriate duration of each gas participant fee structure period. And AEMO has adopted through consultation a 3-year fee period for each determination since the 2018 determination. So we've had a consistent 3-year fee review periods. So with the shorter fee period, it allows AEMO to respond more readily to changes in the regulatory reforms or changes in participant profiles, incorporate any new services or any trends in the gas market. However, this creates a need for more frequent reviews and changes for participants and AEMO. On the other hand, a longer fee period, like a 5-year in the name, would give participants the more certainty and predictability over their fee structure. So we've included our preliminary views on the right column of each of these slides. So AEMO's preliminary review is to retain the 3-year fee structure period, which balances both stability and adaptability. But we are keen to hear from stakeholders if this is appropriate or if a longer fee period is preferred. Next slide, please. So the next issue we have raised in the consultation paper is the treatment of the East Coast Gas Stage 2 reform costs, or ECGS Stage 2. ECGS Stage 1 is already part of AEMO fees, and building on Stage 1 is the Stage 2 reforms, which was approved by the AEMC in June this year and is made up of 4 rule changes. So that's the implementation of the ECGS Projected Assessment of System Adequacy, or PASA, enhanced reliability and supply adequacy arrangements, a supplier of last resort mechanism, and a notice of closure of gas infrastructure obligations. So out of this package of reforms, the PASA reform represents the most significant implementation effort, and the AEMC final determination classifies PASA as a major gas project under the rules, considering the scale and also the impact on the ECGS. So the Stage 2 reforms will be implemented at progressively. So each rule change has a different implementation timing, with the PASA system fully implemented by the 8th of June 2028, and that will be the last sort of the 4 reforms. AEMO has provided preliminary estimates of the Stage 2 cost to the AEMC, which is up to 15 million in capital costs and 1.3 million in ongoing operating costs. And the capital costs mainly relates to the IT system investments required to set up PASA. So AEMO is proposing to include the ECGS Stage 2 as part of this upcoming fee review. And our preliminary view is the cost recovery of PASA to commence from the 1st of July 2028, and the recovery of the remaining Stage 2 reforms to commence from the 1st July 2027. So this is based on the implementation timings in the final determination. AEMO is also proposing, instead of a separate ECGS Stage 2 fee, what we are proposing is a single combined ECGS functions fee, which will combine ECGS Stage 1 and 2 into a single fee, recognizing that these functions are closely related and they are integrated and form part of the same reliability and supply adequacy framework. And they're also delivered through a common work program, which makes it more practical to track costs given the integrated nature. So what we are proposing is this single ECGS functions fee. And the structure of this fee, our preliminary view, is for it to be based on the ECGS Stage 1 fee structure. So again, we welcome stakeholder views on these options we've presented, and if there are alternative views, we would like you to consider it through the lens of the fee structure principles and the national gas objective when you present these options in your submissions. If we can move on to the next one, Alice. So then the next issue is again a cost recovery type of issue, which relates to AEMO's gas cyber roles and responsibilities rule change. So this rule change was approved by the AEMC and took effect on the 30th of July this year, which formalizes AEMO's gas sector cyber security roles and responsibilities under the national gas rules. The rule specifically includes 4 cybersecurity functions for AEMO as a cybersecurity incident coordinator, AEMO supporting the cyber preparedness and uplift, cyber risk assessment and advice to government and industry, and AEMO facilitating the distribution of critical cybersecurity information. So these functions are identical to the cyber functions in the NEM, which were introduced in December 2024 and then subsequently incorporated into the AEMO NEM fees. Again, AEMO has provided the AEMC with a preliminary estimate of the ongoing cost related to this rule change, which is in the range of 1.8 million to 2.75 million a year. AEMO is proposing to include this cyber rule change cost recovery as part of the upcoming fee review, with cost recovery commencing from the 1st July 2027. We are also proposing 2 fee options for stakeholder consideration. So the first one being establishing a dedicated new cybersecurity and resilience fee, or integrating cyber as part of an existing fee structure like the ECGS functions fee, which we are proposing, which recognizes that both cyber and the ECGS functions fee support the resilience of the broader East Coast gas system. For both fee options, our initial position is to mirror the existing ECGS Stage 1 fee structure. Moving on to the next slide, please. So this topic here is not related to cost recovery, but it's more about the simplification of fee structures. And so AMO's gas fees, as we mentioned earlier in this presentation, the current gas fees comprises of 8 separate fee types, and these fee types have evolved over time as new market functions, services, regulatory reforms have been introduced. So while these separate fees or the disaggregated fees supports cost reflective recovery, it does make the existing framework quite complex with different markets, participant groups, and charging metrics. So this review gives us an opportunity to see if this remains fit for purpose and see if there are any other opportunities to simplify the existing arrangements while still maintaining the appropriate cost recovery and reflective of involvement and our fee structure principles. So we've included one option, an aggregation option to simplify the existing fee structure. So what we are proposing is to combine the existing GSU fee and the ECGS fee into a single fee. This is because both fee structures are currently identical and costs are recovered from the same participants with the identical participant recovery structure and metrics. And importantly, though we are combining the fees, we are proposing to maintain the transparency through the budget and fees process. So the revenue requirements will still be reported separately in our budget and fees because the rules allow us to do that. So the transparency will still be maintained, but the fee will be combined into a single line item as opposed to 2 fees. That's it for that topic. If we can move on to the last one. Thank you. So this final issue is the potential inclusion of non-DTS distributors within AMO's fee structures. So this issue only impacts non-DTS distributors and may not impact a majority of those on the webinar today. So I'll give a bit of background here. So non-DTS distribution systems are distribution systems in Victoria that are not directly connected or indirectly connected to the Victorian DTS. As a result, it sits outside the DWGM framework. And currently, the arrangements for these non-DTS distributors is outside the gas fee structures, and it's managed through bilateral agreements with these parties. And AMO is currently in consultation with these non-DTS producers to terminate these contracts and migrate their fee arrangements to the gas participant fee structures. And the rationale for doing this is to standardize their arrangements, just like other registered participants, and provide more transparency through the fee structure process. So there's a separate consultation going on for this. So there's a retail market procedure consultation that's ongoing, and that's expected to be finalized in November. So the outcome of that will largely affect how we treat non-DTS distributors, in our fee structure consultation. So if these changes are implemented, these agreements will be terminated, and these non-DTS producers, sorry, I keep saying producers, sorry, non-DTS distributors will form part of our fee structures. And a most preliminary view is there is no change to the fee type that's charged, and there will be very minor amendments to the existing fee structures to incorporate these parties. And no new fee will need to be created to incorporate the non-DTS distributors. Yes, that concludes the key matters, and I'll hand over to Matt for next steps and the Q&A. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Hannah, Kerry, and Michelle, for taking us through the consultation and the specific questions on which we're seeking feedback from stakeholders. Apologies if there's a little bit of background noise. We're doing a fire test at the moment in the building. We'll shortly move into Q&A, so please place your questions in the Teams chat or use the raise hand function if you'd like to speak. Before we do, the next slide just recaps the timeline and key milestones for the consultation. As Kerry said earlier, submissions will close on the 9th of September. The target date for publishing the final determination is currently the 20th of January, with a critical deadline of the 31st of March. And that's so that we can ensure that the new fee structure is determined a full 3 months before it takes effect on the 1st of July. So I'll just pause now and see if there are any questions. I can't see anything in the chat or any hands raised, but we'll give it a minute or two just for people to reflect and see if there's anything that they'd like further clarification on. I'll also put myself on mute just while this fire drill completes.
I would suggest, Matt, that it doesn't look like we're going to get any questions. Maybe we hand to you to kind of close out, but perhaps also just add to the offer. Oh,
question. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, cool. There we go.
I can read it out. She's put in the chat, with the simplification of the fee structures through consolidation, fee structures that are currently the same, where a fee structure might change for one, does this then reflect to other fee structure? It's in the chat.
Sorry, I actually couldn't find where the questions were, Alice, but I've got it now. A little slow. No, I mean, the simplification that we've put in as a preliminary option in the consultation paper would only impact the GSU and the East Coast gas functions fee. I mean, it wouldn't impact any of the other across the wholesale gas markets or retail gas markets. It's just focused on those ones. Feel free to pop off mute if I've not answered that question fully, by the way.
Thanks very much, Kerry. There is another comment there from David Prince on the timeline, showing presumably 15 business days for consultation is the minimum rather than the maximum. Would you like to just respond to that point?
It is actually a maximum 15 business days under the national gas rules. That the consultation on the the time that the submissions close on the consultation paper is defined as a maximum under the national gas rules. It's different in the national electricity market consultation process, but that's the gas process.
Thanks, Kerry. I noticed David has also made a comment earlier on, and I also wanted to acknowledge David and Mark Grenning, who I can see both are on the call, just for the important guidance that they've given us so far on our consultation approach as representatives of AEMO's consumer and community reference group. We've had one call with them already, and we'll be having a couple more as we move through to the final determination in January. If there are no further questions, we might wrap up the call there. As I said earlier, if you wanted to arrange a one-on-one call, please get in touch with the team at marketreform@aemo.com.au. I've just dropped the email address in the chat, and we'll get back to you and arrange a time. But with that said, all that is left for me to do is close the webinar. Thanks very much to everyone for joining today. And for the questions on behalf of AEMO, thanks to our presenters and to everyone who joined. Further information, including the consultation paper.
Right, sorry, there is actually another question in the Q&A. So,
okay, apologies, I'm not seeing it. Did you want to read it out?
Tina said that she doesn't have the option to take her mic off mute, so I'm not sure if that's something you can look at, Alice, in that. But so it was more clarification on the question. So if the GSU fee structure, were to change, would this change the East Coast gas fee structure or vice versa if they were rolled into a single fee structure? Yes, so if they were rolled into a single fee structure, they would need to have the same registered participants and the same charging metrics, because it would be one fee structure. So at the moment they are identical, so that's part of the reason why we're saying we could aggregate them, but it would mean that if either they would need to stay aggregated, or if we wanted to change one and not the other, we would need to disaggregate in the future. I'm hoping that makes more sense.
Thanks, Kerry. If there are no other questions, we might wrap up there. Thanks again to all of our presenters and to everyone who joined us. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.